Good morning, Mark Scheipmeyer, the city hearing examiner. I've been asked to convene a public hearing with respect to a request for preliminary plat application by Blue Fern and its agent Core Design. It's seeking approval of a preliminary plat to develop approximately 15 acres into 90 new single-family residential lots at 16330 Railroad Avenue Southeast. In advance of today's hearing, I've received the staff report from the city staff. I'm not sure who the author is. It doesn't indicate on the report.
Clayton Wiebe was the author.
Report by Mr. Wiebe, which I have reviewed in advance of today's hearing, along with all the attachments to the report. And I've also undertaken an independent site inspection and did that this morning, reviewing both the property and all the surrounding area. So I'm otherwise familiar with this application and all of the materials. Purpose of today's hearing is threefold: to hear from city staff, explaining more fully its staff report, what's contained in it, and what it recommends, followed then by an opportunity for the applicant to add to or subtract from what the city has proposed, followed then by an opportunity for the public to provide comment. I'm not certain if there are members of the public who wish to be heard today, but if there are, a few quick points. This is a small crowd. As a result, I'm not imposing any time limits on those who may wish to give testimony, but I would hope that you try to stay on point. And if I see you drifting too much, I may bring you back. Otherwise, I'm not going to interrupt you except for the purpose of clarifying a point if I'm unclear about its purpose. My goal is simply to let you provide me as much information as possible so that I can make an informed decision. This is not a political process, meaning that it's not like coming before the city council where you're trying to impress upon the council how a project might be felt by the neighborhood, whether it's favored or disfavored. That kind of information is less valuable to me. I'm conducting a fact-finding hearing, so I'm receiving testimony to determine whether all the facts I receive support or do not support the finding or the application relative to the city's standards for preliminary plats. And so I'm not interested in petitions. I'm not interested in whether it's supported or unsupported by the public so much as why. And so if you're a member of the public wishing to be heard, I'm not so much interested in your simple opinion as to whether you favor or disfavor the project, but the reasons why you might favor or disfavor it. That's what I'm really looking for. And so if you're wishing to be heard, I'd encourage you to think about that and think about what those reasons are in advance of your testimony. Everybody who does speak today will do so under oath. We will be recorded so that anyone who would challenge the decision I reach, that challenge will be based upon the record that's established at this hearing. We'll begin with city staff presentation. Will that be Mr. Wiebe then, Mr. Cooper?
I'm going to do the presentation today.
So it'll be Mr. Cooper. So Mr. Cooper, do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Hearing Examiner. So as you stated, the proposal is on 14.9 acres, and the proposal is to develop the parcel into 90 residential lots. It's in the moderate density residential, which is 6 units per acre zoning district, located at 16330 Railway Road Southeast. And the property was historically, well, the two parcels were historically used for light agricultural uses. This hearing was properly noticed in 4 different ways. We published a notice in the Nisqually Valley News. We sent the notice of the application to all adjacent property owners within 300 feet of this site. We posted the proposal on the city's website, and then we physically posted the notice at the property. No comments were received from nearby property owners. We did receive comments from the Nisqually tribe requesting a cultural resources survey, which was completed. Finding of no archaeological significance was made, and both the Department of Archaeology and Historic Preservation and the Nisqually tribe concurred with that finding. We also complied with the State Environmental Policy Act. A notice of determination of non-significance was issued for the site. We received comments from the Washington State Department of Ecology, which were sort of standard comments, not necessarily related specifically to this project. So the applicant is going to be giving a proposal, or not a proposal, but a presentation. So I'm going to touch on the findings of our staff report just briefly. Basically, we needed to determine whether or not the project would meet our concurrency requirements for sewer, water, transportation. And this particular project has water available and will connect into the city's water system. The same applies to the sewer. For transportation, they will be required to do frontage improvements to meet the city's codes. And a transportation impact analysis was done on the site to see what level of traffic impacts there may be from the creation of these 90 lots. The TIA determined that it would not have an adverse impact on the adjacent roadways or intersections. With respect to both fire, school, and transportation, the applicant will be required to pay transportation impact fees, fire department impact fees, and school impact fees at the time of approval. There are no significant critical areas on the site. It is an area that is mapped as having habitat for the Mazama pocket gopher, which is a threatened species under the Endangered Species Act. And as such, they were required to do a gopher screening, and the screening determined that there were no gophers on the site. With respect to the zoning, they meet basically, well, they meet the density requirements, they meet the lot size requirements. With respect to stormwater, they do have a conceptual stormwater plan. At the time of civil plan review, they will be, that plan will be reviewed to make sure that it is compliant with the city's stormwater manual. And then landscaping will be required. And I'll get into that a little bit more in the conditions, but they do have a landscape plan. They do meet the minimum requirement for open space. Those are the basics of the proposal. I would like to go ahead and just read through the conditions that we're proposing for the approval. So condition 1, any trees removed as a result of the development shall be replaced at a ratio of 2 replacement trees per each tree removed. 2, a lighting plan conforming to 1859.050 of the Yelm Municipal Code must be submitted at the time of civil plan review. 3, plans submitted during civil plan review shall include all survey monuments. 4, any proposed irrigation system shall incorporate a backflow prevention device and conform with the cross connection and backflow control program as defined in section 1304.220D Yelm Municipal Code. The final landscape plan submitted with civil plans must provide a detailed irrigation plan. 5, frontage improvements along Yelm Railway, I have a hard time saying railway, road are required and must be completed to the neighborhood collector standard. The proposed local access roads must be completed to the local access residential standard. These standards are illustrated in Chapter 2 of Yelm's engineering specifications and standards details. 6, the applicant shall pay all school impact fees, fire impact fees, and transportation facility charges at the time of building permit issuance. 7, plans submitted during civil plan review shall include an addressing map for approval by the city's building official. 8, plans submitted during civil plan review shall include the proposed location and details for mailbox placement, and these plans must conform to section 1859.080 Yelm Municipal Code. 9, the applicant shall provide a performance assurance device in order to provide for maintenance of the required landscaping for the subdivision until the homeowners association becomes responsible for the landscaping maintenance. The performance assurance device shall be 150% of the anticipated cost to maintain the landscaping for 3 years. 10, stormwater facilities shall be located in separate recorded tracts owned and maintained by the homeowners association. The stormwater system shall be held in common by the homeowners association, and homeowners agreement shall include provisions for the assessment of fees against individual lots for the maintenance and repair of the stormwater facilities. All roof drain runoff shall be infiltrated on each lot according to the stormwater manual standards. 11, the applicant shall secure all necessary demolition permits prior to demolition of current structures on property and shall provide the required Olympic Region Clean Air Agency report before demolition may begin. 12, the applicant shall submit a fire hydrant plan to the Planning and Building Department for review and approval as part of the civil engineering plans prior to final subdivision approval. The applicant shall submit fire flow calculations for all existing and proposed hydrants. The applicant shall be responsible for the fee for hydrant locks on all fire hydrants required and installed as part of development. These fees shall be collected by the Planning and Building Department prior to final plat recording. 13, the civil engineering plan shall include a search and report of adjacent wells and their locations. Any on-site wells shall be decommissioned and water rights dedicated to the city of Yelm. Off-site wells within 100 feet of the property shall be identified and well protection radius provided. And Mr. Hearing Examiner, we have an addendum, which we have shared with the applicant, 2 more conditions that are just clarifying conditions related to the landscaping. So I'll read those and then we'll submit a copy to the applicant and to yourself. So 14. Streetscape landscaping is required. Preliminary landscaping plans do indicate streetscape landscaping, including shrubs and street trees for the frontage improvements along Railway Road and for the new internal streets. During civil plan review, the final landscaping plans must conform to section 1855-020C Yelm Municipal Code. And 15, perimeter landscaping is required. For residential subdivisions, a perimeter fence may be used instead. Plans submitted during civil review must include either a perimeter fence or a perimeter landscape conforming to section 1855-020B Yelm Municipal Code. That's the conclusion of my report, of Clayton's report.
Thank you, Mr. Cooper. A few questions. And your addendum addressed or partially addressed a couple of them. A hyper-technical question. In the concurrency portion of the report, it mentions that there's currently no water main located along Railway Road. But later, it mentions on page, these pages aren't numbered, a few pages later in the report, it says there's an existing water line that's simply to be replaced. So there's a minor inconsistency in the report between whether there is an existing water source that's being replaced, but there's no water source at all. Do you know which is the correct one?
Oh, I don't. We may have to ask the applicant. Yeah.
And of course, we struggle with the fact that the orientation is diagonal to the north-south direction. And so when I give directions, I'm likely as not to give them poorly. To the southwest is a power station, substation. What was the intended buffering between it and this development? Or I don't recall having seen the landscaping plan. Maybe it was included and I missed it. But what was thought to be the buffering between the two?
Do you mean screening or buffering?
Either one. What was the envisioned interaction between the development and that substation?
Well, honestly, I'm not sure whether the applicant is going to fence or provide landscaping, but either one is probably not going to adequately. I mean, it's not going to completely shield the substation. Yeah.
Does the city have any concerns about that interaction between Or does it feel anything might be needed to enhance the distancing or the buffering between the two?
Well, we don't have any regulation requiring it, so.
Okay. In I didn't have a separate map, but there was one within the TIA. And it shows some sort of strip between the development and that station. There's what looks like a roadway or some sort of sorry.
Is right when you want on.
Well, I thought we'd at least show their first slide because it shows the.
Yeah, it would be on this version of that same map. There is some kind of an easement running just west of the development. And I'm just curious if what that is or whether it has any importance to the project or that's simply relating to the property to the west.
Those would be access to the trail. If you're talking about those two little tracks, like.
Those are I would call those to the north.
Okay.
To the west, there is a strip running north south. And I'm just curious, is part of this development or is that the adjoining development? Does it have any relationship to this project?
It's not part of the plat. I'm not exactly sure. I haven't seen this one before.
Okay, and its purpose is not anything you're familiar with.
Sure will know. Yeah.
Okay, I'll come back to the applicant on that. With respect to then your addendum and the additional landscaping conditions, I assume then what we're to see curbs, gutters, sidewalks, street trees, lighting internally. And then what are we to see along Railway Road? What is that streetscape that you envision along Railway?
You mean street frontage?
Yes.
Well, it's a 15-foot. They do have a plan. It has to be approved at this time of civil, so it's conceptual at this time, but it's a 15-foot lands or streetscape buffer. It will be street trees.
With sidewalk as well?
Yes.
And some street lighting then as well.
Street lighting is, I think it's internal. Yeah.
Okay. There are 4 open spaces, 2 of which we just talked briefly about, the access points to the trail, which is quite beneficial, I think. The other 2, one of which is the stormwater tract, and leaving then a 3rd recreational, or I'm sorry, a 4th recreational tract. And what, if any, was the plan for that recreational open space? Has one yet been developed?
There's nothing been defined.
Does the city have any standards for that or requirements for it?
Honestly, sir, I'm not sure.
Okay.
I know that very often, very often, for example, when we did the Tahoma Terra, it was a requirement under the master plan community. But it's basically a 10% open space tract. Passive or active recreation.
Okay, since it's open space, the developer will have to do something with it, or else it's just gonna be sort of wasted, but Mr. Wiebe, let's have you sworn. You swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. I did. So you've signaled that you'd like to add to Mr. Cooper's comments. What would you?
In a little bit, on the preliminary plans we received for tract A, one of the largest open space, there was indication for a bench and a play area And I believe, I'm sorry, I do remember it was at least a bench and a play area.
Is that preliminary plat on the website?
That one is not, we did not include that in our staff report.
I wasn't sure if my staff simply hadn't copied everything out off the site or some of the documents are not on the site. So I assume then that particular one is not on the site. So, okay. All right. Either Mr. Cooper or Mr. Wiebe, the design suggests connectivity to joining development either to the east or west. And am I reading that correctly, that it's been designed such that if development does take place in either direction, that it would connect to those subdivisions?
Yes.
Okay. And is that a requirement of the city's code, connectivity?
Yes, yes, it is.
Okay. I don't think I have any other questions for city staff. There are a few things I'll come back to with the applicant. And then that may ultimately, after we've heard from the applicant, perhaps any public comment, we'll come back to the city for any final responses. Good. Okay. So I take it then that would also conclude the city's presentation. Is that right? All right. We'll turn then to the applicant's presentation. And who will that be?
Holly Havern with Core Design.
Use that to advance the slides.
Oh, thank you. Havern, Heavrin.
Great, I apologize. And Ms. Havern, are you with, you say Core Design?
I'm with Core Design, yeah, principal and senior architect or senior engineer.
Good morning. Let's have you sworn. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? You've heard the city presentation. You've heard some of my questioning. And tell me what you would like to add to the city's presentation.
Yes, thank you for providing us this time. City did a great job of kind of walking through the basis of the project. We have just a brief presentation, really hitting the highlights. I did try to take some notes and I'll try to answer some of the questions that I know that you did have.
And Ms. Havern, is that in the form of a PowerPoint presentation?
Yes.
Oh, so let's do a little bit of housekeeping before we proceed. I'm going to introduce the staff report and its attachments collectively as Exhibit 1. I'm going to identify the addendum as Exhibit 2. Your staff report will become, I'm sorry, your PowerPoint will become Exhibit 3, and I would like you to send me a copy after the hearing today, if you don't mind. Okay, so with those taken care of, go ahead.
So yeah, we're here today to present Shell Meadows preliminary plat, SUB 2023-0028. As I mentioned, we'll do a brief overview, but the applicant team is Blue Fern. We'll go through a project overview, the areas of consideration that we work through while we design the projects, kind of the neighborhood vicinity, our application history, and as well as the project infrastructure that we intend to provide. Overall, the project's 14.92 acres. We have 38,000 square feet of open space provided, multiple areas of active, passive, and common open space. Connectivity to the Yelm Tenino Trail that runs kind of along the, we'll say, north side. This is rotated slightly. And we will be providing 90 single-family homes. Areas of consideration that we accounted for when we went through the design, code requirements, municipal code, comprehensive plans. Neighborhood compatibility, which connectivity to future extensions of development has been provided. We reviewed density, environmental protection. It was touched on already about the Mazama Pocket Gopher. We did those studies. Additionally, the entire city of Yelm is in a critical aquifer recharge. So infiltration is encouraged, and we've done that. Cultural resources. we did have the cultural resource study completed and nothing was found. Pedestrian safety throughout the site, while by providing sidewalks for safe travel. Stormwater will be managed and mitigated all on site. Traffic roads are designed to city standards as public right of ways. And water, fire flow, and sewer will all be extended. Kind of neighborhood overview, this project does front Railway Road, backing up to the Yelm Tenino Trail, which is the Northern Pacific Road. Overall, zoned 9 R6. Primary access is off Railway Road. We'll have 2 connection points onto Railway with future connectivity extension. The application was submitted in early March, deemed complete roughly a month later. The notice of application was sent out on the 18th and by the city, published as the city noted on April 19th. SEPA DNS was issued about a month ago on September 19th and our public hearing today. So project infrastructure, all roads designed will be public right of way and are designed to public city standards. Internal roadways are the local access standard as noted. Yes.
Sorry to interrupt, but for better understanding of your diagram, the various circles is that trees?
Yes.
Okay. Just so that as you explain some of these things, I understand better what I'm looking at on this diagram.
Yeah.
And so I'm looking at trees to the, again, we're looking at on a diagonal, but to the west and north, we're seeing trees along the edges as well as to the east. No real internal trees at this point, correct?
Yeah, the site itself does not contain very many trees.
And are those supposed to be retained? Is that why they're identified or simply because they exist on site?
There are 2 trees that are slightly shaded on the kind of the bottom part of the page by lot 3. And then the one on the north between lot 38 and 39. Those are shaded, those are on site and to be retained.
Oh.
And then the additional that are shown are off site, but overhang onto the project, so they will be protected.
Very good. Thank you. Okay, go ahead.
Sewer will be extended within Railway Road as it does not exist currently and will be extended then into the project site to serve all properties. Stormwater will be collected and detained, treated on site in a bioretention pond that's current with the flow control and water quality standards of the current 2019 Department of Ecology Stormwater Manual.
And that will be track C.
That will be within track C, correct? Water will be extended into Railway Road Southeast. So to clarify, domestic water does not currently exist in Railway Road. There is a reclaimed water line
I see.
in Railway Road, but water will be extended from the intersection of First and Railway and then up through the site.
Or middle. The report is coming from the.
It's kind of an intersection of a few different roads.
Okay,
So that might be one of them. And then fire protection will be provided by Southeast Thurston Regional Fire Authority. And, in going through this, that the applicant and our team has met the burden of proof for providing all provisions for public health, safety, welfare, housing consistent with the comprehensive plan and zoning regulations, and all the necessary infrastructure to support the development. We do concur with the staff report as written, including the 2 additional conditions that were provided to us this morning. So we have no objections.
I misspoke earlier where I identified 4 open spaces. I guess there are 5.
There are.
What is the purpose of track B?
So track B will be an additional recreational open space. We do have a preliminary landscape plan that was included with the civil plans. Track A does show currently a large play area, like a lawn area, as well as play equipment, benches, picnic area. All of that programming may change as we further develop, but there is an intention to provide something. And then you have that second play area within the track B programmed at this time.
Parking on both sides of each street then?
Correct, consistent with the city's standards for the local access road. Parking is provided on both sides when it's not in conflict with driveways or other features.
Would that include the streets running sort of east-west?
That's all internal streets, yes.
All of it.
Yeah.
Okay. Are these units envisioned with garages?
Yes.
The easement that shows on the site map found in the TIA to the southwest,
Yes.
is it related in any way to this project?
No, but I think that you might be seeing, and maybe I can show or use this map, just kind of, may I bring this up to you? To clarify, I don't know if this is what you're saying. But this piece of property is a piece owned by PSE, but it's not included in the project
I've
site.
seen this.
Right. Oh, that's not an easement, but it's lines that run down here. It's PSE's property, it's power lines that run right through that.
Okay, so that's just identifying where the power line is located.
Correct, yes, but that is offsite.
Yes. Okay. You heard my questions of Mr. Cooper regarding the interaction between this project and that substation. Do you have any thoughts, comments, added things to say?
We do know that we intend to put either landscaping and or fence, potentially both, in those areas to provide a buffer consistent with the buffer requirements of the city. I don't have any further information at this time as to what the end user, decides to build at that location, but a buffer of some sort, whether it's landscaping or fencing, will be required.
An off-subject question, is Shelm the reference to the whole meadow through there, or is that name taken?
It came from the client. I don't know.
Okay. I'm not finding it anywhere else. I'm curious. It's. Okay.
I was told by my director that it was the original name for Yelm.
Oh,
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
little history lesson.
okay, we've all learned something this morning. Let me see if I'm trying to think if there's any other questions I had posed to city staff that might be deferred to you. Can you recall anything else I asked of them that they suggested posing to you?
The water line was one, the easement, the buffer.
Right.
Railway roads frontage requirements. We
Yeah.
will be providing a sidewalk as well as a landscape strip.
Okay, so for at least the present, that's a sidewalk going nowhere in either of the other directions, but would anticipate future development.
Correct, yeah.
Incorporated.
Yeah, the frontage improvements are essentially what's considered a half street improvement, frontage along our side.
Right.
Upon further development, that would be extended and built out in full.
Is any improvement to the street itself required or anticipated?
By the time water and sewer is extended, there will eventually be new pavement in that area.
There's no widening or anything of that nature that's envisioned as part of this.
There is widening on our frontage side.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. And as far as the sidewalks go, no thought of just a retained fund for future sidewalk development, but rather just the requirement that sidewalks be imposed.
Mhm.
Okay. All right. I don't have any other questions. Thank you. And would that complete the applicant's presentation?
That would, thank you.
And again, if you can make that a PowerPoint available to me.
Yes. Do I send that directly to you or?
Well, we have a
I can
copy of it, don't we? Yeah, we
Yeah.
have, so we can.
Oh, okay.
I'll give you a copy.
Thank you. All right. That completes then the applicant's presentation. So we've heard now from the city, we've heard from the applicant, which gets us to the public hearing portion. Are there members of the public who would like to be heard about this application? Yes, and I forget about our logistics in this room. Is it necessary that she relocate to the podium, or can she be heard and recorded from her current location? She can be heard there. Okay. So what I'm just making sure is that whatever you say is memorialized on this record. So, which means you don't need to come to the podium. So, your name?
Angela, date of birth.
F-O-U-S-T,
Correct.
and that's Faust?
Pardon?
That's Faust, or, okay. Angela, let's have you first sworn. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? What is it that you would like to say?
One of the concerns was when I was trying to read all this, I apologize, I didn't make it to the one for other engagement, but, is our water concerned with contaminants to our well water? Because we're in a county side, we're not on city, we're a house off from the city line, so we're actually in the county. But with all this construction, since it's so close, oh, it's gonna impact our water. So, because we only got a 25-foot well.
So let me locate you. At 16333, you would be immediately across the street.
Right, one of the big cedar trees.
Yes,
Trees and
yes.
the fence, yeah.
Okay,
Right
all
there.
right. And again, you're outside city limits and inside the county's regulation.
Correct.
Okay,
And I believe that little dotted line there that you were asking, I think that's the gas one was put in about 2000.
Oh. okay, that would make sense. Okay, and so your concern, it's, it can be dangerous for me to paraphrase anybody's testimony because I may not be getting its full input. But if I am to attempt to paraphrase yours, it's not necessarily in opposition to the project so much as seeking assurance that the project will not have unintended consequences to your property across the street.
Well, there is some concern, I mean, the traffic, I would like, if they're gonna build it, I mean, obviously, we're not kidding about that. But if, just to look at some certain things, like I do have a deaf blind at home. And I know there's gonna be a lot more traffic, I mean, in some places they have a speed bumps to make them slow down. So that way, if it does go out that way, I can get her before she gets all the way out there. But I do have it fenced in and we're out fencing in the other backside and other parts of the property. To try to not get into that kind of a situation, but yeah, I mean, if there's some ways that we kind of work together, like I said, speed bump, just so that people slow down. If you're gonna have that much traffic, our water concern, you know, and that, so, yeah, I mean, I think that's.
Well, let me work in reverse on your comments. As to speed bumps, it's not uncommon for that suggestion or other traffic calming devices to be proposed in any development, especially subdivisions. There is, however, a limit to what I can address. I can address internal requirements, but I can't impose upon the city things that it has to do, or county, in this case, right? And so I can't either tell Thurston County or actually the city of Yelm to do something to its street. Either one would have to render that decision through either the county commissioners or the city council. Those are the ones holding authority to make road changes, either in terms of speed or road conditions, traffic calming devices. And so I'm appreciative of that issue, but it's not one that I'll be able to address. I would certainly hope that the city will be mindful.
20 years ago, I tried to get it to put a sign up, just stated that blind and child out the way, but I couldn't even do that, so.
Well, but I think the point's well taken, and I think it'll be paid attention to. I think the last thing they would want either is suddenly railway becoming an alternate, as a sort of an escape route for a lot of traffic. I think it envisions the traffic will flow in a different way. And so I think it agrees with you. I'm gonna guess.
Finish that young.
Right.
They're gonna come down the railway or.
Well, yeah, right, I understand that is to still be determined. Let's turn to your other issue, and to the extent that it might, it's always difficult to do a kind of a what if type of analysis, just simply because we're dealing with unknowns, but we can address to some extent. And I'd hope that the city staff might be in a position to better explain how stormwater or the applicant, might be, in position to explain how stormwater will be managed. And therefore how this project may or may not impact groundwater resources. So if I were to turn to the city staff first, Mr. Cooper, might the city be in a position to at least somewhat respond to Ms. Dayton Faust's question about impacts to adjoining groundwater resources? What might the city, or how might it respond?
I can roughly explain it. I don't review stormwater facilities, but I do know that the stormwater must be retained and treated on site. Biofiltration facilities are designed to basically trap any sorts of pollutants that might be getting into the groundwater. And with respect to the well, you might recall there's a condition on the report that the applicant locate all wells adjacent to the site to determine whether or not they're within 100 feet. Every well, the county requires a 100-foot protective well radius for wells. So if you're outside that 100-foot radius, that's determined to be far enough away to protect the well. I suspect that Ms. Faust, is that right? I suspect her well is more than 100 feet away, but of course we'll determine that as we proceed.
It's just right on, I don't know if you're familiar with the other side of the roadway. My house is a fenced in yard, then you got the, other house, because they've been there for, about 2 years, and it's right directly behind your house. That's
So
where it's at.
So those wells will have to be located, and by that, I mean, I think the Department of Ecology maintains records of where the wells are located. They'll be located, a 100-foot radius around that well will be diagrammed, I guess you could say. And if it encumbered this particular project, they would have to develop around that. So they couldn't do anything within your 100-foot well radius. So that would be the measure they will take.
Okay, and does the applicant wish to add anything to what the city explained?
Sure, yeah, actually, yes. Just to put your mind at ease, what well research was a condition of approval. We have concluded our research. Mr. Cooper is correct. Department of Ecology does have well logs, so we know where all the wells are, and we'll provide a map that shows those. But even though you are 100 feet or more than 100 feet away, during construction, we're required to still treat and detain all of our construction stormwater on site so that there is no ground contaminants that get into the groundwater. The full development of the site will utilize bioretention. So as Mr. Cooper mentioned, the water will filter through a soil media that gets cleaned and holds out the pollutants before it infiltrates into the ground. So we're recharging the current groundwater so to keep all the wells hydrated, so there won't be any concern or risk of drying out the well.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for your questions as well. Are there any other members of the public who wish to be heard? The record should reflect there are none. So that unless the city had any final response to say the applicant's comments, anything left for the city to respond to?
No, I just appreciate you clarifying some of the issues.
Certainly. So that concludes then the hearing today. I'm going to go ahead and approve the application subject to the amended conditions. I'll make note of Ms. Dayton Faust's comments and discuss those in my decision, but they will not impact the outcome of granting the preliminary plat subject to the conditions found in the report. I believe the conditions are complete, meaning I cannot think of any additional conditions that I feel are necessary to make this subdivision full. And so what I'll do is prepare findings of fact, conclusions of law in my decision. I think most in this room are familiar with that process, but it does take a little bit of time to convert the information found either in the staff report or the applicant's materials and into my findings, which are slightly separate and independent of all those. But I intend to do that as quickly as I can so that it's off my plate. And so I think there's a mutual interest in seeing to it that my decision is timely rendered. Please keep in mind that although I've orally approved it today, that oral approval has to wait the written approval for it to be effective. And again, that will be just a few days' time. But once that's in place, then the preliminary plat will be approved. And you'll be free to go then seek your other necessary requirements. Any last questions about that? Hearing none. Yes, you bet.
Just that, I was thinking, when you guys were talking about your part, that you built, is there some way, that you could call one of those Izzy Hayes, because that's when you found property, and she was there since the 60s.
Izzy Hayes.
Izzy Hayes, she's really big at the American Legion and all that,
Oh.
yeah. But she had that property before Cody and Will did, and she's been there since the 60s. No,
Okay.
and she was a big part of the,
I'll put it in my notes and see what we can do.
that would be awesome.
Thank you for bringing that up. And for considering it. I'm not in a position to impose it, but would nonetheless encourage the thought. And I appreciate you suggesting it. So again, I think with that, I believe we've attended to all matters. And so we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.